Over spring break, I went on a trip down to southern Florida to visit Blue Springs State Park, the Ocala National Forest, Merritt National Wildlife Refuge, the Everglades National Park, and John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park. Come along with me and let's take a look at some of the flora and fauna I saw during my trip. On our first day, we visited Blue Springs National Park, and there were no manatees, but we did take a boat tour, and our tour guide was a pain to listen to. He called anoles aeoles and claimed that Florida was #1 in beef production in the United States. It was really weird. I didn't get any plant photos this day because my camera batteries died on me, so I was really sad. Now, on our second day, we visited the Ocala National Forest and got a guided tour by a very knowledgeable park ranger named Liz. It was a very different experience than the day before with Aeoli Man. She showed us the huge sandpine scrub ecosystem that's there, taught us how it is managed, and she even let us climb the fire tower, which was really scary because I'm afraid of heights. After our tour, we ended our day at the beautiful Juniper Springs. This is bull nettle, which I accidentally grabbed without realizing that it had some pretty gnarly spiky hairs all over it. These spiky hairs have irritating compounds in them, so my poor fingers were hurting for about 15 to 20 minutes after I got poked. Besides their spiky hairs, these plants have some pretty white flowers and palmate leaves. This is Lyreleaf Sage. Lyreleaf Sage was very common in wooded areas and the pollinators were going crazy for it. This species was once used to treat cancer, but unfortunately it wasn't effective. However, it still may have some other medicinal uses. This is Spanish needles, and this species, along with its close relatives, are not only very weedy, but they also produce barbed fruits that like to hitch rides onto your clothes and animal fur. Luckily, while we were out and about, there weren't any of these plants that were fruiting, so I didn't have to pick any of these fruits out of my clothes. We just got to look at the beautiful daisy-like flowers that this species produces. This is a red cockated woodpecker, which is an endangered species of black and white woodpecker. Unlike other woodpeckers, these birds drill holes into living trees. The woodpeckers will create resin wells in the trees that ooze sap, making the tree all sticky. This will help protect their nests from predatory snakes that may want to try to eat their young. On the third day, we visited Merritt National Wildlife Refuge to go bird hunting, but I was more interested in the plants. We did see some very cool birds, however, I didn't get videos of them. We saw spoonbills, pelicans, and avocets. I did accidentally touch poison ivy this day, and I had to rush to a bathroom to wash my hands like 12 times. This is a Carolina wild petunia. I found this plant hiding out in the shade, and it appeared as though it had been planted, which is fairly common with this species because they can form mats along the ground and make very nice garden borders. Additionally, these plants are very drought tolerant and bloom multiple times during the blooming period. This is coral honeysuckle, which unlike its relative a myrrh honeysuckle, it is not highly invasive. This twinning vine produces beautiful tubular red flowers that are visited by hummingbirds and long-tongued insects. This is a groundcherry, and groundcherries are so cute to me with their little drooping yellow flowers. Now, a very closely related species to this one produces tomatillos, which were very popular before tomatoes became widespread. Also, this lovely little plant, as well as several of its relatives, are the host of the Carolina sphinx moth larvae. This is a horrid thistle. They are most known for being extremely spiny and producing large yellow to purple inflorescences. As you can see, the flowers are quite important for pollinators as they produce a lot of nectar. On top of this, the seeds are enjoyed by birds and the vegetation is used to host a few different species of butterfly larvae. That's not too horrid if you ask me, but with how weedy this species can get, I can understand. This is blanket flower, which as its name suggests, forms blankets along the ground as it grows. These flowers are one of my favorites that I encountered down in Florida because of their multicolored display. I was running around trying to find a flower that had the perfect combination of a red, orange, and yellow on it. This is oak leaf fleabane, and it is fairly common, especially along roadsides. It's said that this plant can be used as an insect repellent, and if anyone has tried using it before, let me know how it went. Now, this species has leaves that resemble that of an oak, and that's why its common name is oak leaf fleabane. This is a manatee, which is super cute, and we were so excited to see this. They are super gentle animals that just swim and eat all day. Unfortunately, their numbers are declining due to being struck by boat propellers and the loss of seagrass, which is the manatee's primary food source. They were once on the endangered species list, but were delisted in 2017 after their population numbers reached just over 6,000 individuals. However, in 2021 alone, over 1,000 manatees died and over 800 died in 2022. This was the fourth and final day, also the longest day. We left at 4 a.m. to drive 5 hours to the Everglades. When we got there, we hiked the Aninga Trail and then went down to stop by Flamingo Drive to try and spot some crocodiles, but we were unsuccessful with that. This is an Aninga. Aningas are fairly large birds that prefer freshwater habitats like swamps, lakes, and lagoons. Another common name for this species is snakebird because when they swim, they like to poke their heads out of the water so they can see their potential prey. When they do this, the Aningas somewhat resemble a snake moving through the water. This is a blue dawnflower, which is probably one of the prettiest weedy plants I've ever encountered. These beautiful vines were heavily cultivated and now can typically be found in wet areas where they are spread rapidly by stem fragments through the water. Also, the seeds of this species are toxic and if ingested will cause some unpleasant nausea and maybe some diarrhea. This is sweet acacia. It's a shrub or small tree that produces these beautiful yellow puff flowers. Watch out though because the twigs have sharp stipular spines on them. However, interestingly enough, the flowers are used to make perfume and the sap of this plant is so sticky it was once used as glue. This is star rush whitetop, which looks like a grass with a flower on top, but it's actually a weird looking sedge. This sedge's top bracts are what draws attention to them, being white and turning green at the tips. Now, this little plant was pretty common everywhere I went. However, it was near water, and it scared me to get a photo of it because I didn't want to get eaten by an alligator. This is coffee senna. Coffee senna is a bit of a weedy plant that grows in full sun, but I was still happy to see it because I think this plant has some pretty flowers and strange-looking legumes. Additionally, this species is known to have many medicinal uses, such as treating colds, flus, and eczema. But if you use this plant, you'd want to do so in moderation because it is toxic in large quantities. This is an osprey which is sitting in its nest, and behind it is another adult as well as a baby osprey. These fish eaters have wingspans that range from 4.5 feet to 6 feet wide. Osprey nests are large and constructed out of sticks, similar to that of eagles. However, a lot of times you can find osprey nests on top of artificial structures like light posts. This is a redhead agama, which I thought was super pretty. Then I found out it wasn't a native species and they are everywhere. These colorful lizards are native to Africa and were introduced into Florida in 1976 through the pet trade. This lizard is a male as they present very bold colors, whereas the females are much smaller and not as colorful. Now, when we were done in the Everglades, we drove a little bit more to go snorkeling at John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park. I really couldn't believe how blue the water was, and it was really awesome to see all the mangrove trees as we boated out to sea. This was my first time going snorkeling, and the reef was so pretty. You can see all of the different colored corals, and I was trying so hard not to kick them while I was there, and thankfully I never hit one. You don't want to hit a coral because they can sting you, and they also take a really long time to grow back. But while we were out there, we saw a bunch of barracudas, so the fish that killed Nemo's family, and I didn't see any clownfish, so I guess the job had already been done. I found this weird thing swimming next to this coral, and it could just be a piece of kelp or something, but if you know what it is, please let me know. We also found this big lobster hiding under a rock. He eventually came out a little bit more, but I became more interested in this pretty fish that was swimming around the reef. Here's another pretty fish that I was following, and here's what I believe to be a nurse shark. It was so cool to find this. I'm glad that it wasn't a big, scary shark, though. There is this giant conch down on the sand. Okay, we found this, and we think it is either an octopus or a rock. So help us settle this debate, please. All right, here are some more cute fish, but this time they are in a little school. All right, thank you all for watching. I hope that you enjoyed looking at some of the flora and fauna I saw on my trip down to southern Florida. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you all in my next video.